What's up, everybody? I got a 2007 Chevy Trailblazer, which was brought to me because the guy says he has to keep adding power steering fluid in here. He's put 2 quarts in here over the course of a couple of days, yet you cannot find any visual external leaks. So when that happens, normally what you will find is these boots on your steering rack are full of fluid. And just like I thought, I took this boot off of here yesterday just to verify what I had figured, and fluid came pouring out of there. In fact, I think there's still a little bit dripping out of there. So with that being said, the guy ran the pump without fluid, and the pump is essentially junk now. To top that off, the lines that are attached to the pump are so rusty that they don't want to come loose. So what he's opted to do is have me tear out the entire power steering system, and we're going to change everything. So I don't know if I'm going to make this one big video, if I'm going to make a series of videos, but first thing I'm going to tackle is the steering rack. So I've got the wheels off, and first thing I'm going to do is start working on getting these tie rod ends loose. We're going to have to get that cotter pin out of there, and it looks like it's a 21. I'm going to find out. I'm going to gather some tools, and I will be back. Before I proceed any further, I wanted to show everybody what these lines really look like. Normally there is a piece of cushion here that covers these lines up, and they tend to rot away here. In fact, that might be just a tiny bit of saturation. Somebody's been in here and chopped this out and did a repair here, but these lines are so rusty that they are not going to survive. So we're going to be taking all this stuff out of here. I'll be back as soon as I've got to these tie rods, and I will tell you all what's going on from there. All right, I got the cotter pin out of here, and this is a 21. So I've got it almost all the way off of there. And what we're going to have to do is give this a nice good whack here, right on the knuckle, and that should free that tie rod. It should come right out of there. So I'm going to knock this loose, and it's going to make a bit of noise, so I'll be back as soon as I've got this loose. All right, so 3 or 4 whacks later, nut comes off, and our arm is out of there. All right, so I've gotten my other side loose, the outer tie rod, and I think my next step here will be to start loosening up some of this stuff underneath here. We've got to take out these plates here. So we got, let's see, 1, 2, looks like 3 13s, and these are like 21s. So I'm going to crack those loose, and I'll go on the other side and do the same thing on the other side. All right, let's see if we can crack this thing loose here. That is not coming loose real easy. So we're going to have to get ourselves a cheater bar. I'll be right back. Okay, so here we are back. I've got these bolts loose. These again are 21s, and then you have 3 bolts down here that are 15s, here, and there's one there, and you also have one hidden up in here. I don't know if I can be able to show this. Right there. That's where that one goes. So, what did I use to get this loose? To get that one up in that recessed area, I used about a 2-foot long, about 2-foot long extension with a 15mm swivel. That's a 3/8 universal swivel, and I've got a 1/2 inch drive on this end. Use a 15 1/2 inch to get these loose. and I used a 21 deep impact to get the 2 bolts loose here, combined with a breaker bar and the handle for my extra jack. If you're going to do this by hand, be prepared. These bolts are super tight. Getting them with a regular breaker bar just isn't going to cut it. You're going to have to put a cheater bar on there. So my next move here, I think I'm going to take down this tray right here, get it out the way, and then I'm going to head to the other side, break these same bolts loose on the other side. And once I've gotten to that point, I'll be back. All right, this is the piece that we're trying to get out of there. This is how your bolts go. This is how the bolts go, how it will look underneath. And then you will have the 2 other bolts right back here. One there and one there that you're going to have to take loose as well. So now that I've got that out, greasier than a 9-cent pork chop here, let's take a look up underneath here and see what we can see. And there's our rack sitting right there. Here's what we're looking for right here. So my next step is going to go on the driver's side, and we're going to disconnect the shaft from the steering wheel, which is right in here. Lift this little access panel up here. I'll probably end up taking this off and get it out of my way completely. What we want to do is lift up this rubber boot here, and this will expose our bolt for our rack and our shaft where it connects together. Let's see if I get a better picture of this. There we go. That's what we're looking for. And we're going to undo that. That will separate our steering shaft here from our rack. And once I've got that out the way, I'm going to attempt to get to the 8mm bolt that secures the lines into the rack. But I think this is about as far as I'm going to go tonight. Getting tired, and I'm going to pick back up on this tomorrow. So I'll be back. Alright folks, I'm back here. I'm about to get this bolt out of here, which is connecting our steering shaft. Right now my steering wheel is positioned perfectly centered and straight, so this is where your bolt should be. You should have pretty easy access to it. Sometimes these boots can be a pain in the butt, but I'm going to get that out of there, and I'll be back at that point. Alright, here's our bolt that goes through your steering shaft. So I've got that out, and I guess my next step here is going to be to get this 8mm bolt out of the lines some kind of way. So I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to get that out of there. When I figure out a plan, I'll come back and show everybody what I did. Okay, I have got a view of the bolt. I'm going to try and show everybody. It's going to be a little rough here, so bear with me. The bolt that you have to undo is, I'm trying to get a screwdriver in here to pinpoint it. It's really tight now. Right here. That's your bolt that holds your lines in. So it looks like my plan of attack is going to be to go through this little section right here in this frame and have to manipulate the ratchet and extensions over the top of the axle shaft. So let me work with this and see how this goes. Yeah, this ought to be interesting. Stay tuned. Alright, so got my ratchet, and what I'm using is a 6-inch extension. This is 1/4 inch, 6-inch extension, universal, and an 8mm. I've already cracked it loose, and be prepared, it is tight. So hopefully this will Come right out of here. And you can see where my hand is positioned to get to this. This will be so simple with air tools, and I've got them, but I know everybody doesn't have them, so I'm trying to do a lot of this stuff by hand, just to show the drama that you're going to have to go through. All right, so there. It should be out of there. Let's see if I can get my fingers in here. Not going to happen. All right, I'm going to have to grab that with a pair of needle nose or something. Getting that back in ought to be real interesting. So now that I've got that loose, I'll pop those lines loose. They should come right out of there because there's a plate that holds those in. And I don't have a, yeah, I do. This is what it looks like. Seeing that one's all covered with rust. But that is what the line looks like. And this is the high pressure line. Your return line will go in there as well. And this section here holds it into the steering rack assembly. So I'm going to get that loose. Get a drain pan under here. Catch this fluid. There's probably not a whole lot left in here, if any at all. And then our next goal is going to be to get the rack bolts loose that are going through here. And I have yet to see what size that is. I'll get up underneath there and find out in a minute. But I'm gonna get the rest of this stuff, these lines out of here, and I'll be back. All right, there we go. Our lines are freed. Those things are stuck in there pretty good. So what I ended up doing was taking a screwdriver and just tapping it with a hammer real lightly, and it pops right out of there. And I was right. There was no fluid left in there. Now, what did I use to get that out? Is this 1/4 inch ratchet, 6-inch extension, if it will focus. Oh man, focus. With a universal and 8mm. It'll come right out. All right, everybody. I'm back up underneath here and in the process of loosening up the rack mount bolts. We got one over in this corner, as you can see where my ratchet is. This inside head is a 21, and on the other side, it's going to be a little bit challenging. What you're going to have to do is use a combination of tools. What I did was I got a 13/16 spark plug socket that has the nut head on the end of it. Get up in here. Or you can put a wrench, because that is the only thing that's going to fit up into this recessed area here. Otherwise, you're going to be pulling your axle out. You don't want to do that. So I've got this almost loose. A couple more twists. Yeah, this side's pretty much loose. So I'm going to head to the other side and do the same thing. Now, what I'm using to get this inside loose is deep 21 on a 1/2 inch ratchet. And I did have to put a piece of the jack pole on there to get a little additional leverage. I tried to breaker bar, it's just not enough room. We got the vehicle up in the air, but I didn't get it up high enough apparently. So we'll work with what we got. And I'm gonna head to this other side and get that other bolt loose. And the rack should be coming up out of there. So before I drop it down, I think I'm gonna go get my little trusty screw jack and stick it up under here to give it a little support so it doesn't fall out of there and knock a bunch of crap around. So I'll be back. All right, so here's a better view of what I used to get the inner rack nut loose or hold it in place. And as you can see, this spark plug socket has essentially a wrench end on it. Combination, if you will. And that is what I use. A 7/8 wrench to hold it in place. All right, I got both of my rack bolts loose. Now I want to try and get this thing out of here. Hoping this just comes right out. jiggle this bolt out because it is not going to want to come out of there. All right, there we go. All right, hit this other side. Of course, it's not going to want to come out. There's all the weight hanging down on this end. So it'll just fall right out of there once it releases from the steering shaft. There it is. Whew, there we go. All right, so here is our entire steering rack, end to end, inner tie rods and outers. Now, I previously took this boot off of this end to figure out that it was leaking and that boot was full of fluid. I didn't take this side off here, so I am kind of curious if this side is leaking as well. $100 says it's full of fluid. Let's see what happens here. No, not on this one. So it was just this side that it was pouring out of. See the remnants of it still coming out of there. All right, so I'm going to go and grab our new rack, and I'm going to have to more than likely transfer this boot over. I do believe I transferred this shaft over, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll be back. All right, folks, so here is our new rack. And it looks like I'm going to have to transfer that shaft over there. And I'll probably end up transferring our old outer tie rod, because there is actually nothing wrong with those. It's the inners that are worn out, but the seals on the rack are the main concern. Stuff still pouring fluid out here. So I'm going to get this assembly off of here, and once I get this boot off of here, I'll bring you back so you can see what this looks like. Let's get this thing off of here. There's our yoke shaft. So yeah, we are going to have to transfer this over. It looks like a 15 on there. So I will get that loose, and we will get that onto this shaft here, tighten it up, and put our boot back on there, and we'll lift this thing into place. All right, here's what our yoke shaft looks like. As you can see, it is flat on two sides, and there will also be a groove right there that the bolt slides through, so it only goes on one way. So just push that down on there, get our bolt started. And I'll get that tightened up. I'm going to Put my boot back on here, and I'll start lifting this up into the car. I also want to make a note here, when you're putting this boot back on here, pay attention, because there is a slot in the boot. So it needs to go right over that little section, that little hump right there. The other side doesn't have one. All right, so what I decided to do was go ahead and crack these tie rods loose. And I'm just going to transfer them on over to the new rack. So this should be relatively the same alignment. And to get these outer nuts loose, this is a 7/8. So I'm just going to spin this out of here. Careful, don't tear up your boot there on the end. There we go. And we're just going to thread this into our new one. Pull that up a little bit. And I'm going to thread that all the way in. I'm going to do the same thing to the other end. And then I'll tighten them up. This end has some slots where you can fit a wrench. I didn't. I used a crescent wrench, adjustable wrench. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other end here. And I'll be back. All right, my rack is back in place. Excuse me, I don't have the bolts tightened up just yet. I left everything loose for the time being so I could get everything connected, including the steering shaft, which actually wasn't too bad. I've got it all back together here. Got the bolt back in there. Just gotta cover that boot back on there all the way. There we go. And this bolt's in, just not tight. Kind of got this mounted to the tie rod temporarily. Try to hold some stuff still here. Yeah, that's still loose. So now, since we're going to be replacing everything, the lines, the pump, and the rack, I'm going to go ahead and attempt to take these lines out of here, because they run up along the top of this strut tower. And this is the line that somebody sectioned in here. You can see the clamps there. So I'm going to be taking that one out, and that should be our return line. Runs all the way around here and over to the other side. So I'm going to start ripping this out, and I will be back. All right, folks, I had ripped out all of the old lines, and I didn't get a chance to video that, but what I have done is gotten my new lines in place, and I haven't hooked them up to my steering rack yet, but they are in place. Now, how did I get these things in here? Exactly where you see me sitting is how I got them in here. I sat right here on this side and shoved this end in first. It goes down towards the fan, and then the rest just kind of have to maneuver it in there without really tearing up anything. So I managed to get it in there real nice and neat. Still got my vents real nice and neat, but there's quite a few things you're going to have to take loose to get those lines out. For example, you have two connectors here, or two retainers, excuse me, here and here. There's another one. If you're changing your high pressure line, there's another one down here. I don't even think I can see it from this side. But there's a connector that holds both of the lines together. And it screws in right here, right below the harmonic balancer. In fact, if you look in here, you can see the nut for it, where the bolt goes through it. And it's just a 10 millimeter retainer. So now that I've got my high pressure line in here, we're going to put a couple things back. I had to take a lot of stuff out of here. Here's the retainer for the line. It actually houses both of the lines. Let me get a better view of this. And this is what holds it in place. So the other line would normally slide right through there. We're going to have to figure out a way to get this to where it can, where I can reuse it. I think I can pop these clamps up on here, possibly reuse this. But in order to get that out, I had to take this little plate out here. Oh, shit. This went in there like that. I got power steering fluid pissing all over me. Alright, so that's where we're at now. So all I'm going to do, probably for the rest of the night, is I may try and hook those lines up onto the rack. Now up here, what I had to do to make a little room to get some old lines out, I disconnected the main cables from the fuse box. I disconnected any of the wiring harnesses that were in the way here that were keeping me from accessing anything I needed to get to. There's no set of anything that you have to pull off. Just take off whatever's in your way. Just remember to put it back. Aside from that, I will be running my next line, which will be the return line that comes from our reservoir back over to the cooler. But after being up underneath here, taking a better look at stuff, it appears that our cooler is leaking as well. It is saturated. Put some light in there. So yeah, it is pretty well toast. So we're going to end up changing that as well. Here's the other side of it. Not in the greatest of shape. So it is what it is. And here you can see where the leak actually is. You can see the saturation coming through there. And look down here, it's just soaked. So another part to add to the list. And I will be back tomorrow to do a little bit more. All right, folks. Here we are, back for more trauma and drama with this thing. So I went ahead and connected my lines down here at the steering rack. And let me tell you, wrestling around with those seals that have to go in there, no fun. No fun at all. So our next step, now that we've got that in, guess I'm going to get up underneath here and start bolting the rack in, tighten up the rack bolts, and we'll start putting that framing back up underneath here. So let me clean up in here a little bit. I got stuff everywhere. Yeah, get all this stuff situated here, and I'll be back as soon as I've got the tools out that I need putting that joker together. Be right back. All right, now when it comes to these seals, they go on the line. These seals look like little cups. And essentially, what you're supposed to do is stick them inside of the holes on the steering rack assembly. When the line is pressed in here, it punctures this seal inside, and the line is able to go through, and it's supposed to seal around the actual steel line. Trying to get these things punctured, what I suggest you do, if you can get your lines lined up, take your medium-sized screwdriver or a pry bar and just kind of push on the plate that's attached to the lines. You can wedge it up against part of the body of the car, and it should pop right in. All right, so I've got my rack bolts tight, and I'm putting this plate in up underneath here. I need a little help, so I enlisted the help of my good buddy here, Mr. Screwjack. If you don't have one of these in your garage and using it, this is a lifesaver. I've had this thing for about 6 or 7 years. You need something to hold something in place, that is your man. So what I did was I got a couple of these bolts started here, the 15s on each side, and I'm gonna get the rest of them in here, get them all started, and I will tighten everything up from that point. I'll be back. Hey everybody, I've got this completely in place. Everything's bolted up, tightened up real good. And my next step was to put the tie rods on back in. So I got them sitting in there. I got to tighten them up and put the cotter pins back in. And from that point, I am going to head to the front around to here, and we're going to start putting our lines back in place. This is my high pressure line here. I got a line right there that's got to run to the cooler. I still got the pieces of the line on the cooler where I clipped them off. I haven't taken them off yet. I'll get them out of there. A couple of the clamps I got to free up and get them so where I can reuse them to hold these lines back in place. And from there, I'll go on up to the pump and start taking that loose. That should be it for about now. So I will be back when I'm at that point. All right, folks. While I'm waiting for my power steering cooler to get here, I figured I might as well keep on going. So what I'm going to do now is attack this pump. So what we're going to do first is get this belt off of here. And I went ahead and I put an arrow on this belt so I know which direction that it was going before I took it off. If you don't, it can start squeaking on you. So I've got that all marked. I've got my serpentine belt tool I'm going to put down in here. Twist this down, get our belt off, and then I'll show you the tool I'm going to use to pull that pulley off of that pump. And I'll be right back. Alright, so my serpentine belt tool wouldn't fit in there. So what I opted to do was take a 3/8 ratchet. We'll get it into a good position, and it's got a lot of tension on it, so I'm going to stick this wrench on here just to pry this down, just to show you what I did. Just lift up on your wrench, and then you can take your belt off. That takes the tension off of the belt. Now that we've got that off, pull that out of there. And what I'm going to do next, get this out the way real quick. Tool I'm going to use is this puller, and this is made by Snap-on. Let's see, there's the number if I can get it to focus. It says CJM 1782. I think this thing was about, I don't know, $100 maybe. So what happens essentially is this mounts onto the front of there. I'm going to tighten this up. Then I'm going to take my 1-inch wrench and hold it here, and I'll be turning this screw here with a, I guess a 1/2 inch. So let me get this together. Be right back. All right, let's see if we can get this thing out of here. I'm not leaving myself a lot of room here, especially with this camera in the way. Essentially, this is what you got to do. Just twist this and it comes off. Let me position this camera in a better spot. And this is what we're going to keep doing until that pulley comes off. You notice I got my wrench braced up against the water pump pulley. As you can see, pulley's steadily moving forward. It's getting a little easier to come out of there. Yes, I would stick a ratchet in here. Unfortunately, there isn't enough room. So once this gets loose enough, I can can stick a wrench on the end of it if necessary. But as you can see, I don't know if it's showing, you can see the gap right in here widening. This ought to be coming off of here pretty soon. I've got my lines already unhooked. So if you were doing a power steering replacement, this is essentially no different than what you have to do. You'll just have to disconnect your lines first before you get to this point. Should be almost about there. And again, it's not a lot of room to work over here. There we go. Just about there. There she goes. That's how we get our pulley off. So, next move is going to be to unbolt my pump, which looks like we got a bolt here and a bolt over there. I'll look at the new pump just to verify. I know that the only 2 bolts there, but it looks like that's it. So I'll be right back. Alright folks, I was mistaken. There is 3 bolts here, 3 13 millimeters, and 1 down at the bottom. This thing is so greasy and dirty, I almost didn't see it. So we got that one there, another one over here. Alright, so yeah, there are 3 bolts on here. This is the way the pump will be positioned on the front of the truck. So you have a bolt at the top here, 1 off to the right hand side, and 1 down at the bottom, and all 3 of these are 13s. Here's what your bolt will look like. So now that we got the pump off, what we're going to do is remove our reservoir, and we're going to swap our reservoir over to our new pump. The way we're going to do that, so we're going to have to get these retaining clips out of here first. And there's 1 here, we've got 1 down on the bottom. The way those come out is inside of that center section there's a little tang. So what you're going to have to do is lift up on that tang while you're knocking this thing off. It's angled, so you'll see that one side is skinnier than the other. Looks like you're going to have to knock it off towards the back. It's got to go this way. So once I lift that up, I'll take a screwdriver and hammer and just knock this loose. Same thing on the bottom, and it'll separate it from the reservoir. Once I got it loose, I'll come back and show you how to separate it. All right, let's see if I can get this retainer out of here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to lift up on this right here, right in this center section. I'm going to take another screwdriver here, put it right there. I'm going to try and drive this off of here. There. Don't want that. There we go. Don't want that to go flying across the garage. Well, that's one way to get it off. All right, again, we're going to try and get this side off. Flip this thing over. And what we want to do is try and get this little retainer to move first. There it is, starting to flex. Move it up and down a little bit. And we'll try and get up underneath it. Lift it up. And it's pretty rusty in there. There we go. So it's like you need 3 hands here. So this thing goes flying out of here again, it won't surprise me. Can't tell if it's coming out of there or not. Let's see. There we go. Yep, using a screwdriver for a chisel. Definitely a no-no. All right. Now a reservoir. Come right off of here. It's just held in right there. There we go. That is what our reservoir will look like. So we're going to change the seal on here and put it into our new pump. Now the retainer clips, this is what they look like up close. You can see how they're slanted. And let's say you want to lift up on that center tang and knock it out of there. So let me get this a little cleaned up. I'll be right back. All right, let's see if we can get this pump back together with this reservoir. Got our new pump here. And there is the port where our reservoir will go in. I took the new O-ring, lubricated it up. This will slide right into that light there. And then you'll put your retainer clips back on here. Just like that. On both sides. Grab this other one. So now we got this side here. We'll do the same thing here. Wide end goes on first. You can look and see, make sure that it is lined up onto those slots. And we'll just tap it on in there until that little retainer snaps into place. So I'm going to knock this in here and I'll be right back. All right, and there we have it. See, it's all back together. Clips are back in there. And it is locked down. So now we're going to throw this thing back on the truck. And we're going to put our pulley back on here. And we're going to connect our high pressure line. Be right back. All right, pump is mounted back on the truck. I'm going to tighten up these bolts here. You want to get them all in there good before you tighten them up. You want to make sure it mounts flush. Right. So the next step is going to be putting that line on and getting that pulley on there. I think I'm going to put that line on first. Make it a little easier, because if I put that pulley on there, it's going to make it a little bit challenging to get the line started. So let me fish that line on up and I'll be back. Alright, what I did was I thought I was recording the installation of the pulley, but apparently the camera didn't start. So what I did to get this on here is I have an installer, and essentially this screws into the front of your pump, just like that. You'll tighten it up as far as it'll go, and then you can use this to press the pulley on there. You'll hold on to this and then twist this. This will push that pulley onto that shaft. So I got that back on. So now, oh, and I also put the high pressure line in. Do not forget to put your O-ring on there, or you will have some issues. I'm going to throw this belt back on here, and I may decide to go down below and try and put that clamp back on those lines that runs along right up underneath that balancer. Alright, so the only thing left over here I've got to do is put my wiring harness back into the connector here. And we're going to find our low pressure line, which is somewhere down here, the return line. There it is. And we're going to stick a clamp on there, and it goes on the reservoir right here. So we'll just stick the clamp on there, push that up on there. So as soon as I get done with this, I shall return. Alright folks, I'm back for a third day here. This is our power steering cooler that we're going to be putting in today. This is the last thing that I'm putting into this system. So let's show everybody how we get to this. Alright, what I've done already is taken the grill off of the truck, and I'm going to show everybody how to get this off of here. It is held on with a series of retaining clips. As you can see, you'll have them here, here, there, there. There should be one here, and it is still in the truck. And we'll put that back, and here, 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 and the same on these ends. To get these out, you'll need to depress the little clip portion right here. You'll need to squeeze that down. You can push it down with a screwdriver, or I use a pair of needle nose. And what I also find helpful sometimes, if they don't want to come out, is spray a little WD-40 in there where the clip is going to help it slide out. So we're going to get that out the way. Put that in a pile of parts that we have yet to put back on. And we got to get this bumper cover off of here. Now, looks like we've got a 10mm here, pop clip there, another 10 there. So I'm going to take those out. And there is a retaining clip up underneath here that I already took out. I'll show everybody once I get back up underneath there. But I'm going to cut this stuff loose here, and I'll be back as soon as I've got to that point. Okay, I've gotten my top push clip out here, and as luck would have it, both of these 10mm bolts snapped off. It's not like I didn't expect it. Where we live, it is a salt belt, and yeah, salt just destroys everything. Not a big deal. We'll figure out a solution for that. Down here, I had to take the license plate and frame off because the push clips that are underneath here I couldn't get to behind that frame. So you got 4 push clips under here, and there's also push clip retainers that hold the license plate frame on. These are the ones that go to hold the bumper cover on. So there's 4 of those there. There's also supposed to be a push clip here on the end, but apparently that's gone. And there's one on the driver's side as well. So I'm going to get the rest of these clips out, and this should just come off of here once I take that last retaining clip off of that side. I'll be back at that point. Okay. Now that I got all my clips out of there, all you have to do is kind of grab it and give it a good yank, and it will come right out of there. This one pretty much fell off, but we were taking it off anyway. Get this out of the way here. This should expose our power steering cooler, which is right there. And it is in pretty bad shape. So it looks like there's a 13, and there's another 13, and I already have the lines cut loose because I just cut them from the old line since we were replacing them anyway. So it looks like this is fairly simple. I might have to pop this little air dam out of here some kind of way. But let me figure this out, and I'll be back when I got a solution. Alright folks, so it looks like I'm not going to be able to get this plastic air duct out of here without taking this bumper off, this bumper reinforcement. So, damn, it is what it is. I'm going to cut these 2 bolts loose and take this whole thing off of here, and then we'll have up front access to that cooler. I'll be right back. Alright, there we go. Bumper's off, which will leave us direct access to our cooler assembly. So, I've already cracked this 13 loose here. So this ought to come right out of here. One more over here. There we are. Yeah, she's trashed. Looks like that was our main source of the leak right there. Probably took some debris, punctured it, started leaking. Alright, I'm gonna get my new one, and I'll sit it up here in place, and I'll be back. Alright, there we are, folks. Got the new cooler in. It's bolted up. We are ready to put our bumper back on. Not a big deal. 2 bolts, and she'll be back in place. And we're going to put our bumper cover back on and all the rest of our accessories that we took off. And I will be back once I'm at that point so I can connect the lines, and should be finishing up this portion. And our bumper is back in place. These bolts here that go through the bumper are a 21. They are held in with these retainers here. So if your nut is starting to spin on the bottom, more than likely your retainer is rotted away and you're going to have to hold that nut with a wrench. And that pretty much covers that portion of this. I think I'm going to wipe this air dam down, because that's all that is. That's an air dam to force the air across the cooler and through the condenser and the radiator. So I'm going to wipe all of that down. That way I'll know if I got anything leaking from that point. I'll be back. Alright folks, I've got these lines in, got them in place, got them anchored down, and my nose is back on here, got everything buckled up underneath. And let's take a look under here. This is what we got going here. There's our new lines coming down here. Back in the retainer up there and connect it to my cooler. So the only thing left at this point is to go back up and button up all of this stuff that we took apart yesterday. Wiring harnesses and basically the clamps that hold everything back in place. Aside from that, we're going to button the rest of this stuff up, put the belt back on, and I'll be back at that point. Alright folks, I am finally finished here. Got everything back in order. Everything is running good. Power steering is perfect. No leaks, no nothing. So at this point, I'm going to call it done. If this helped anybody out, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Believe me, I'll be back with more. Catch you on the next one.